Welcome to the MZ Burning Glass studio for this monthly J.O.L.T.S report analysis, a report looking at job openings and labor turnover. On this March 9, 2022, I'm your host, Christopher Laney, and I am joined by a couple of your neighborhood-friendly economists, except the neighborhood's a little bit bigger. It's the United States. I have senior labor economist Ron Hetrick and economist Rusha Venkudre. Ron and Rusha, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Chris.
So I want to start with just the first take, the first look. Ron, I'll start with you. You got the report. It's been a few minutes. Give us your first take on what you're seeing.
Yeah, the first thing that jumped out to me was the really significant increase in revision for December's job openings. If you remember, we went down to like 10.9. Well, that number revised to 11.5, which is our all-time record high. And so when we look at the revision, or not the revision, but when we look at our number for January of 11.3, that would have been a record for us had it not been for that upward revision in December. So I think what that tells us is that we still, we were feeling a lot of pain still in January from the amount of openings that were out there.
Rusha, first look for you. What did you see? What are you seeing? What are your first initial thoughts?
I think in general, it looks a lot like more of the same of what we've been seeing. Openings are still very high. Quit rate overall is still very high. It seems like continuation of the trend.
So I want to start with job openings first. Ron, I'm going to go to you to break down the numbers a little bit. Just looking at maybe by industry, those job openings, what are you seeing? Maybe who are the winners and losers over the last month? What were maybe even some surprises for you?
Yeah, I would say when I talked earlier about that revision upward, accommodations. So basically we're looking at hotels and restaurants, and we know that this is mostly restaurants. In December, a significant 250,000 upward revision in openings. So we actually got a decent decline in January, something we would expect because January's, it starts to ease off of that kind of seasonal movement. So I think that downward bump is kind of what drove our overall number down a little bit. But I think one of the things I continue to be very concerned about is manufacturing, which saw kind of a bit of a downward revision last month, but jumped back up to like a record level or close to high record levels in January. So still very concerned about what's happening in manufacturing.
So Rusha, looking at the same kind of question, but looking at like quit rates, those industries that are maybe losing individuals, can you break down maybe some of the numbers when it comes to individuals thinking about leaving?
Leaving more. Actually, I was going to say, so interestingly, I was going to say the other thing, which is that the opposite, which is that we saw a lowering of quit rates in construction and information by quite a bit, which is sort of an interesting point. The construction, definitely might have something to do with the seasonal labor. Give me a minute to get, I think top quits, I'm actually going to let Ron answer because I don't have it in front of me.
The top quits? I don't have the top quits, but yeah, I think there were a couple of things. There were some seasonal industries, construction, I think eating and drinking once again. Or was it retail? Retail also had a pretty decent downward movement. And I think we got to be a little careful there that there may be some seasonal aspects that play into that a little bit. A lot of employers hire like crazy in the run up to the holidays. And then in January, there's not as much hiring. So you would expect the quits would ease off if that is the case. I think construction, it's something where every time I see something in construction that looks kind of favorable, my initial reaction is, was it snowing during the survey week? Because sometimes construction workers can't quit because there's no jobs available at that time in certain parts of the country if the weather isn't very favorable.
Do you guys feel like the quit rates is stabilizing right now that we're seeing? I mean, we've talked about it multiple times. We're seeing the same thing month over month, but do you feel like it's going to continue at this high? And how is this affecting employers just trying to retain that talent? Ron, I'll go to you first, and then Rusha, have a response ready.
Yeah, I would really say when I look at quits, I mean, they're still at this incredible high. People that I'm talking to now, and it's March, are telling me they're still seeing attrition like crazy. But, we were talking about this, Rusha and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, that things look to be like they're stabilizing at this level. It's like we hit a frenetic pace. And I did expect, before the holidays is when everybody tries to hire at the same time. So you get all of these industries trying to do something. You're at this time of the year, January, February, you're supposed to see an easing back from companies. So to see quits staying up as where they are is a little discouraging, but they're not getting higher. So maybe we've entered into a certain holding pattern. And you do have to think of one thing. How many times is a person going to quit a job before they go, look, I like this job and I'm going to stay here for a while? So I do wonder if this by natural ways just kind of eases up.
Rusha, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm happy that it is somewhat stabilizing. As Ron mentioned, that the December number had been revised up a little bit. So we could expect the same from this month's number, perhaps 2.8 going up to 2.9% or something like that. But I think, it is a good sign, at least, that it's stabilizing. And I mean, I think things can always get worse, right? So the fact that maybe we're starting to come down and the trend could potentially be reversing, while that doesn't make things easier for employers right now, it at least doesn't make them harder. And, something we've been talking about is, given how high the openings still are and the unemployment rate was not much changed, we saw, there's still a lot of labor tightness out there, right? There's still very much a shortage. There are not enough workers for all of the openings we have. And so that's a pressure that's going to continue to be felt.
Yeah, Ron, is it enough? So when I think about the job openings that we're adding more jobs every month, and then those that are kind of, I think you mentioned it, the great like reshuffle. We're just kind of reshuffling people in the economy. Is it enough to really help with that labor tightness? And what are we going to do as employers? What are we going to do to try to get the talent that we need?
Yeah, I think the thing that I've been watching, anybody's been following my writings or any of the things that I'm putting out, really concerned about these kind of that number of not in the labor force and how little that's been moving the past several months. So we're seeing these kind of what looks like significant payroll job gains. In January, we posted a pretty decent number, but if you look at that number, a lot of the gain was because seasonal industries couldn't really hire towards the end of the year, so they didn't really have people to lay off. When I look at these people like not in the labor force, even though it seems like things are moving along, we're getting movements of like 200,000. Well, we need 3 million, like we need 4 million. So we're really kind of picking away at something that I hope to see accelerate. I kind of feel that it will accelerate and get a little bit better as we enter in the second quarter. But let's not forget one thing. In January, the Omicron virus was still a prevalent thing. So I think the quit rate coming down even as it did is a pretty good sign that maybe people are kind of settling in and that once things stabilize as they are right now, maybe we'll start to see improvement over the next several months.
Rusha, looking at this report, past reports, what are your thoughts on maybe what to expect in 2022?
I mean, I think employers are going to continue, struggling to have people in all of those openings they have. I think it's great that the economy is, growing and that we're adding more jobs, but this labor shortage is not going anywhere. We saw that there was a slight decrease in the women's labor force participation rate in the last BLS release that came out, which is really trending in the wrong direction there. And so I think we're going to need to see people making some types of policy changes or employers doing something different to get more people in the door.
Yeah, Ron, same question to you.
Yeah, I look at it. I definitely feel, just based on some things we saw last year, I think there are people who are on the sideline that will re-engage. Yes, as I pointed out in the article we just released, I think a week or two ago in the update to the demographic drought, there are a tremendous amount of retired people that I do not believe will come back. I just do not believe it. Now, a lot of people will say, well, isn't all of this inflation a good thing then? Because as we're seeing, right now, the current rise up in prices, maybe that would take people who did disengage and get them back in. But I don't think we can ever forget just how successful a lot of the boomers were. So I think what we're looking at is that prime age population, which, by the way, we're still sitting well over 1 million people who are out of the labor force, not in the labor force now than we were, prior to COVID. So I'm hoping we can get those million back and then get their friends in as well and start to cut into the shortage. One thing I do want to point out, something I was looking at this morning, new orders are literally in the stratosphere right now. But when you look at certain things with industrial production or shipments of things, even like food, we're holding our own. We're doing a fairly decent job. So I think what's happening is employers are pushing their current workers to quite extents to get things out the door. I think the hope is that we can get some reinforcements in and help this even farther.
So what you're telling me is we're going to have another great term. It's going to be the great burnout that's going to happen.
I'm concerned about that. I will tell you that the actual number of quits in manufacturing last month hit an all-time high. So very concerned about burnout and things like that in that particular industry.
Yeah. Rusha, we're gonna end with our top 3 takeaways. I want to start with you. Go ahead and run down for this month's report. What are your 3 top takeaways?
I think my main takeaway is really, we're seeing much of the same that we've seen, right? So openings still very high, quits rate still very high. I am hopeful that perhaps we'll see some sort of at least constant for the trend of quits, and I'm hoping that holds out. But that, as unemployment continues to be lower than for a while now, I think we're just going to keep feeling that labor tightness.
Ron, your top takeaways for this month's report.
11.3 million job openings. And if you haven't noticed, our current unemployment rate at 3.8% is just a few ticks above our all-time record low. I think we know where this is headed. We really do not have enough people looking for work. And so these really high numbers, I don't think you'll see much improvement even into February. I think secondly, we look back to like some really outstanding quit rate levels in November when the feeding frenzy was very high, and we've eased off of those numbers. But man, in January, still feeling a lot of pain. I think employers will all tell you, yeah, I'm still feeling pain. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if we're going to see much in February, but stay tuned for the coming months.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and we're thankful for both of you and your analysis today. For more information about our analysis or how MZ Burning Glass can help you, you can visit us at mzbg.com. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Rusha, for a great conversation, and we look forward to next month.